What you're seeing before you is the result of about 100-foot diameter asteroid, small piece of an asteroid. I don't think most astronomers would agree that it's a diameter asteroid, but this is the impact. I would say we know it was a nickel-iron type body that hit the Earth, so obviously it was not a comet. Typically when an asteroid or large body strikes the Earth, the resulting crater is 20 to 30 times the diameter of the actual body. In giving her presentation, Ursula said the actual remnant of a meteor,
wow, that's interesting.
the meteorite, is located about a quarter of a mile down below that circular spot. But you can see most of this area is limestone rock. There's some of the rock has been got some iron dopants in it. Most of it's like a calcite, kind of a yellowish stone. So that stuff is very brittle.
As our building, that is all sitting on rock layers of debris that's supposed to be filled inside the crater.
Now the meteor has been said to have occurred or struck the Earth about 50,000 years ago. Given this type of rock and everything else, a lot of weathering would have occurred, and you can see that there's a lot of sand, broken rock, that with weathering between rain and wind has now flowed down towards the basin of the crater.
As well as within these rock layers, you're going to see a little bit of sea life. You do have seashells, ammonites, well, ammonites here. You have a cephalopod. You have tube worms that left their tunnels on top of the Monkapee sandstone. You have geodes that are normally formed around water surfaces. You also have the table itself that gives you form of having water upon it. You do have one rock fragment here that is actually eliminated from this area, which is a fragment of lava rocks. Yeah, so with this being eliminated, at one point, 1890, this place was pretty much believed to be created from a volcanic steam vent, not finding any evidence of your lava rock around here. And also, geologists knew it didn't have to do with any type of volcanic activity.
You can see the museum above us. And down below, Vanessa has discovered something very interesting.
Oh, so these are all fixed sites.
Oh, so each of these telescopes is fixed in position to reveal a certain feature, right?
Right, here it's showing the strata of the land.
It's labeled with what you're looking at, so you have a pretty good handle on the information, the names that they use for the various features associated with the crater. And if we sight along this one, as Vanessa pointed out, you will see what they call a house-sized rock on the very edge of the crater above.
So everything just basically, easy word, got inverted on top of each other, reversed on top. So the area we left off, the meteorite, just to do a little bit of a demonstration, entering, impacting, doing a major shove, uplifting, ejecting all the rock layers 10,000 feet up in the air, landing forcefully right back down in this type of order.
So there was a main period about 500 million years ago, as I understand it, in which there was a lot of crater impacts on the moon and the Earth, and it's been subsiding since then. But all of those craters are long gone in evidence, with a few exceptions, such as this.
To the Homestead building. So as I mentioned, right after Daniel Beringer filed mining rights on this open space out here, he pretty much, I guess you can say, built up his house here upon the rim. 1904 is this structure when it was built. It is being supported with mud, clay, water, top layers of the Monkapee sandstone, few beams, cable wires here. Eventually caught fire in the early 1940s, blew down in 1948. Before it blew down, Daniel Beringer lived here up until the year of 1917. He actually decided to move out, relocate to the south of the crater where his mining camp was at. That same time frame, the Chilson and Tremaines, who owned the desert land, decided to place two of their family members inside this building, which was two sisters, Emma Chilson, Sarah Chilson, were the two given and placed inside this house here. and as well as shouting at everybody to frequently get off of their private land. It was impossible for them to do so every day, so they decided to come up with that family agreement. 1938 is when they came up with opening this area up to the public, making some dirt roads right behind you, which is your first parking lot, holding up to 10-11 vehicles there, turning this here into your first museum in the year 1942, when the two started charging that admission price of 50 cents. So once again, this building here is your homestead building onto your first museum. Right behind you, ma'am, there is a water pipe. So I did mention to you the miners have a new ribbon metal poles together, connecting it to the boiler, and ran it 2 miles west of here to the canyon to get their water source. And imagine how much hard work they had to put into it for all the rivets, so there was no leaking, running to and from to get their water supply. This here is the root cellar. So this, a lot of people mistake it to be one of the many mine shafts. This is actually a little bit of a storage space, or what you would also call it to be your refrigerator. 1900s, no electricity out here. Daniel Beringer, the Chilson sisters living in a stacked stone building. So in order for them to keep their food supply cold or anything at a cold temp, they had to place them inside these root cellars here.
According to the placard, this meteor fragment, it's called the Halsinger meteorite. It's the largest fragment that they were able to recover from a iron nickel meteorite, which means this thing, when it smashed in, took a real beating. We saw a smaller version of this piece of meteorite at the Percival Lowell Observatory. So despite being made of really heavy metal, the meteorite itself only remained in tiny fragments after collision with the Earth, in an otherwise pretty rocky but not densely so environment. So the impact velocity must have been incredibly high. We were just told that this is probably the most harrowing. I just stumbled over a rock while I'm talking in the camera. A little bit of a walk so we can get a nice, decent top-down overview of the crater.
So this is the area here where we give it the name Picture Rock. As you can see where it gets its name from, you guys can do some nice inside panoramic photo shots here.
No, ladies and gentlemen, there's no water here, but there's plenty of beach, and the kids love it. Walking back to the visitor center, and as we return, I will reflect a little bit about what I've learned. I've learned this area has an extremely complex mineralogy, that the crater, when it impacted, penetrated pretty deeply into the Earth, maybe 1/4 of a mile, that the layers of geology around the crater are inverted due to the fact that by penetrating, it basically flipped the various layers. Right here, we're having lots of sandstone. It's visible as this white substance, which used to be part of an ancient seabed. And at the time, it was a very shallow sea, but the area was very verdant. When the meteor struck, it basically changed the climate of the region significantly. And that sounds like a very astonishing series of consequences for it. I've learned also that this land, which is hundreds of thousands of acres, basically was ceded on the Homestead Act to the originating geologist who was out here in order to mine iron. And since that time, there's been a lot of developments of the crater. It's probably one of the best defined craters that you can find on the surface of the Earth, and that there's been a lot of development, and so a lot of money has been invested, and all that money has basically not come from the riches of the original family, but from folks like us coming to visit Meteor Crater. And they take that money, and they seem to have done a great job of preserving the environment, as well as developing some nice infrastructure to support the museum and other activities that may go on here. There are some indications that it may not have actually been a piece of a meteor at all that landed here. It may very well have been this fellow here. Can you tell us, sir, exactly how you managed to get to Earth? Ah, I see. You're sworn to secrecy. Non-disclosure agreement, right?